Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to this GGP-Connect webinar. My name is Anne Gauthier. I'm director of the Generation and Gender program. And today we're delighted to receive Norbert Neuwirth, who is the principal investigator for the Austrian Generation and Gender survey, and who will share with us the experience of running the GGS in Austria and a sneak preview of how it went. So a reminder to everybody that the presentation will last about 20-25 minutes, will be followed by a discussion with the group. We will, please don't hesitate to post during the seminar to post your question in the Q&A, not in the chat, but in the Q&A. And after the formal closing of the webinar, we will then stay open for informal discussion if any of you would like to do so. But on this, I'd like to pass it on to Norbert. This is all yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just activate the screen. Oops, well, that was the wrong one. Sorry. Second trial. So now you should see the presentation slide on full screen. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to present the outcomes or the experiences we had with the fieldwork of the GGP in Austria for this wave. I just my presentation will have a couple of parts. Most important, the lessons learned. I begin and will end with, and some experiences with funding, with calls for tender, and so on. You will see. Lessons learned as we started this wave, and taking with us some lessons we learned from the first round of the GGP was, well, first of all, the question, why do we want to implement the GGP-AT again? Austria, some other European countries does not have a national survey program or panel survey program on family issues. Therefore, the GGP could fit in quite well. In fact, we do have some models on fertility issues attached to the labor force survey, and sometimes, a family module pops up with the ISSP, the European Value Survey, the European Social Survey, but that's not too comprehensive. In addition, we do have some low-scale surveys on very specific groups of families. Austria is also running the share program. So if we implemented the GGP, we said, okay, we can focus on the age range recommended, 18 to 59, and we did so. Austria is highly interested in participating in a panel program that is internationally comparable. So, but we knew from the first round, the costs were considerably too high. The copy mode we established for the first two waves, they were much too expensive, and we were happy to hear that GGP International had developed an alternative to the pure copy mode. We had some time schedule the first time schedule was written in 2019, and and the first step would have been the agreement on the GGP implementation with the main funders. But as you know, that was determined to be finished by April 2020. But as you know, COVID broke in the first quarter of 2020, and all was considerably shifted. First, the agreement. These were 9 months of delay. The final contracts signed with the explicit funding was shifted for 7 months in addition, and so on. The call for tender had took some time, and so on. So in sum, we had 23 months in delay, but well, finally we got it done. And the first round was organized and coordinated also by us, by the Austrian Institute for Family Study, in close relation to the VID, the Vienna Institute for Demography, located at the Austrian Academy of Sciences, and the fieldwork from alpha to omega, from sampling to testing to all, to doing all the field works and the controls, was done by Statistic Austria. That was a very, very close relationship between these 3 institutes. For this wave, a couple of institutes came to the consortium, that's the Institute for Sociology and the Department for Demography, also located at the University of Vienna, plus the Paris-Landau University of Salzburg, who's also contributes within the consortium. But on the other side, Statistic Austria has gone, and we had to place a call for tender. Well, we had to place the call for tender anyway. And finally, this was won by the Action Partner. That's a small fielding institute, but run entirely by statisticians and mathematicians and others who from informatics and so on. So their technical skills are wide higher than compared to other fielding institutes. We also do have some cooperations with the share group. Funding, well, I could talk half an hour about funding, but let me limit it just to one slide. We had 3 federal Austrian ministries that would have or should have funded the GGP-AT 2020 and next years. But as COVID broke in, the Federal Ministry for Civil Affairs, Health Care and Consumer Protection went off, as their main scope was now to fight the COVID crisis. Remaining was the Federal Ministry for Science, Education and Research, as well as the Federal Chancellery. And finally, we got the funds that were lost with the Federal Ministry for Civil Affairs. Finally, we got these funds compensated by the remaining 2 federal ministries. I just want to show some shares of the funds. About a little more than the half goes to the fielding agency, and about a third is brought in as in-kind services from all the collaborators from the GGP-at consortium. In addition, we have additional personal costs for services we have to buy and material expenses. These are the fixed costs, these 18%, but as we will see further, the fixed costs share is quite higher. As the volume for the field work does exceed the upper limit for the call for tenders, we had, following the EU-wide awarding guidelines, we had to state an EU-wide call for tender. Luckily, just Austrian institutes did participate, but we had to define each and every single task. So when it is these tasks are entirely defined, the flexibility is reduced considerably. And as every part has to be calculated and budgeted separately, also the chances of shifting these cost components is reduced, and again, flexibility is lost. The incentives are quite a high share of the costs that were assigned to the Fielding Institute, and these, of course, these are additional fixed costs. Also, the third-party services that had to be taken from the Fielding Institute are also fixed costs, but to be included in the offer. We had quite a lot of simulations on what net sample size have we to address, and we concluded to have a net sample size of 6,600 with at least 40% men in, and to be representative for all the age groups, the regions, and so on. Therefore, for these 6,600 from our simulations, we had to draw a gross sample of 22,000. It's quite exactly 30% that we expected to get with the methods that we had developed. As a matter of fact, we cannot draw this gross sample as we wish to. We had to draw a gross sample from the register that was even larger to select from them. I'll go into detail later. So this, we call it the gross sample, was up to 55,000 individuals and addresses. We also installed the possibility as an emergency parachute for certain social groups that cannot be reached by our sampling frame, that we would introduce an additional sample from the Fielding Institute's panel, up to 10% at maximum of the net sample, that's 660 persons, if needed. It's just an emergency parachute. We decided, after long discussions, to install pre-incentives that are, well, quite expensive, as you have to give all the pre-incentives to the whole gross sample, of course, plus a post incentive of 20 euros. And for some special respondents, I'll come down to that later, in addition, a lottery to win 3,000 euros. with this combination, the distribution of the cost components shifted considerably as the incentives as fixed costs did show a totally different picture. Now we have got more than 40% of the total budget is in fixed costs. What kind of sampling procedure did we decide to take? Well, we decided to draw 3 tranches from this gross sample of 55,000 addresses. The first draw was a purely random draw. This random sample consisted of 14,000 potential respondents, and then after, say 5-6 weeks, we looked at the data coming in, and then started the second tranche of 5,000 with a stratified sample, stratified by gender and age, stratified by the region type, and in some way stratified by educational levels. The same game after a couple of weeks, after 8 weeks about, we draw the third tranche, and now we stratified again, plus with the criteria above, plus migrational status. Migrational status is of course quite problematic, as we do have quite large shares of people from, say, Afghanistan, Iran, and so on, that cannot be motivated to participate in a more or less complex survey like this one. And still, we have this emergency parachute on our back with the 660 additional sample if needed. Then the strategy the mode strategy was a push to web strategy as recommended. And we thought, and I think that was these were the numbers Needy communicated. Well, it has to be expected to be 80%, at least 80% of respondents that will be on the CAVI side, and the remaining 20 on CATU. Well, calculated from our 6,600, that would have been the numbers we had in our call for tender. Well, finally, this call for tender, a couple of institutes, fielding institutes, went through it, and two remained in the process, and the one that got it, a action partner, prepared with us the field phase. First, the platform we developed, and that was, say 90% on-site of the Fielding Institute, was not just to communicate the respondents, that's your ID, and there you go on the Needy server, as we had to take additional information, personal information, on the landing page. That was to verify the personal data, add the email address, add the telephone number if given. But that was not mandatory, of course. Then the respondents were automatically directed to the needy server and came to the server page. We all know the ID was also transmitted with a token. And then after finishing the survey page, the respondents were returned to our end page with a small additional questionnaire. And the question, do you want to have the incentives, of course? And finally, the question, would you like to participate in the panel 3 years later? The procedure of getting in contact and getting the interviews was quite straightforward. We sent an invitation letter by snail mail, as we just had the postal address. This letter we call the visa letter. Then if the respondent had entered, or if she had not entered within the next 5 days, she was returned, sent a second reminder. If she'd entered, she came to a landing page as shared before, and if she had not completed, she was automatically sent 3 reminders by email, telephone call, postal mails, and if she completed, she got the post incentive question for participating in the panel, and her address got to our panel database. We had an additional questionnaire on stress, on the impact of the crisis of COVID, Ukrainian war, and the inflation development, and the impact of these crises on the standard of living and the future plans, first of all, fertility plans. The field development was, quite as expected. In tranche 1, that was quite short, just for five weeks. We started last week of October and ended last week of November. You see here the aviso, the first reminder, second reminder consequences. Then the second tranche, same game, but not that large, of course, and third reminder. After the third reminder, we tried to reactivate some respondents who had broken up, but that was not too efficient. All in all, we were quite lucky, I think. We had, from the 6,600, we had quite a higher share that participated. We had not 30, we had quite exactly 40% that entered. We had 37% that completed at least the first 3 sections, and 34% completed it all. Haven't written it. And the question on, do you want to take part in the second wave? Well, just 75% of these respondents that will stay in the data set agreed. Well, or 81% of these persons that were asked. So, as we had in the call for tender, the push to web strategy, how did that go? Well, in fact, we didn't have 5,300. We got 7,680 interviews by Kabi, and counted 19 by Kati. So I think the push to web strategy was quite efficient. We also had a tracker on our landing page, tracking which kind of devices are used, entering the survey. More than the half came in from PC, 45% by mobile phone, and just 2% on tablets. And we also had the operating systems on. That's more or less corresponding to the operating systems that are used from private users. Some preliminary results. Well, I've got to go through that quite quickly, I'm afraid. I just looked in some results on gender equity and gender equality. First, I'm looking on the working hours of females, given the man works full-time, compared to the opposite, working hours of males, given the women work full-time. On basis of the family phase, and we see, and that's the result we also have in LFS and so on. The high percentage of women either not in the labor market or in part-time up to 20 hours has a particularly high share and declining, but it's on a very, very high level compared to nearly all other countries except Netherlands. Also the part-time plus, we call it, well, that's quite comparable, and the comparison to the males, well, the males are flatliners in this respect. So we still have in Austria quite a well-modified, but still some kind of breadwinner model that dominates. And we see it from the other side, from the responsibility of home production, that's dominated by the female side, and the same with the responsibility for childcare, dominated from the female side as the mirror effect. The total workload burden does not differ that much. That was astonishing. We thought that the workload burden effect would be much higher on the female side. Next steps to be taken, and that's nearly the last point I have. Next steps we will take, we're already taking plausibility checks on the data we have. We have some chances for data corrections, for instance, for the date of birth, where the respondent has mistyped, and we can correct that, as we have that in our registered data. We will flag the units to be deleted, either because they are finally out of age range, or the breaks up that have not finished the demography or life history part. And all the time we are testing, comparing, especially with the microsensors and the EU silk in Austria, but some other service too. More important are the marginal distributions for a couple of items of statistics we've taken from our registered data. That's quite a challenge to get these up to date, but we're in a good way in order to calculate our GGP Austria weights and to submit these criteria needed to needy is thankfully calculating a unified weight for all countries. We will have to write a couple of reports, of course, beyond the documentation for the international documentation for needy. And when you download the Austrian data file, you will get these documentation files as well. Standard tables for the funding ministry's field report for all of us, of course, and nearly most important, the brochures we have with every wave, and you can download the brochures we had for wave 1 and wave 2 of the first round from our homepage, and I hope soon, latest in September, October, the new brochure will be attached. Finally, and most interesting for all of us, when will be the data release? The data release will be after all these steps are taken. And we think the implementation of the needy data server, as well as on the Austria data server, that's the Austrian Social Science Data Archive, will be it will be ready in October. So let me conclude with the lessons learned, the additional lessons where we learned. The incentives we take are strongly opposed against pre-incentives at first, but whereas these pre-incentives did their job. And as we saw, attaching a €2 coin, we did with the €2 coin that was sent with the invitation letter, the visa letter. We had a folder with a €2 coin attached on it. That was much too expensive in production, in handling, in the postal fees that were charged finally. So a €5 bill would have been cheaper than a €2 coin. That's the point we learned. Post incentives have to be sent as soon as possible, as we got a couple of phone calls from respondents that, well, could not wait this 1 week to get their post incentive. The effectiveness of the lottery, we also attached, well, didn't say it, in tranche 2 and tranche 3, where we addressed to these groups who did not participate that hardly. We also attached a lottery and wrote it to the visa letter. Of €3,000 to be won. And this lottery has to be evaluated if it was effective or not. The sampling procedure with the 3 tranches, well, that worked even slightly better than modeled. We got much higher shares as expected. But the self-selection to the panel that has to be evaluated, which has on the beginning of that. The mode effect, well, simply we skipped the Carty mode. That was that gained some costs and well, and we got out 19 interviews. That didn't stand for that. And well, please replace the blaze because the surface of the blaze that was not appealing for the respondents. I think we had a couple of breakups. We had hundreds of breakups because that blaze is not appealing for them. especially when you're using a mobile device. As far as we can see now, well, I think we did quite well. Nothing's perfect, but well, we did all the tasks and, well, concluded quite well. So, thank you for your attention, and, well, simply, now, let's get started.
Thank you, Norbert. Thank you so much for this presentation. And I'm amazed about all the insights that you have and even preliminary results, considering that the fieldwork has just ended, or it's even just about. So thank you so much for all the hard work there. I'm turning to the audience. You can do various things. You can raise your hand. We can upgrade you as panelists if you want to ask live your question, or you can post it in the Q&A. So who would like to ask a first question from any of the attendees? If not, I will start while you still think about your question. Norbert, what we have observed in all the other countries with the KAWI is, well, there are two things here. One is a major overrepresentation of highly educated individuals. And that's normally the case with surveys, but with the web-based survey, it seems to be even more so. So I wonder if you have had a chance to look into that. And the other one I'm curious is, we maybe naively thought that the web version would appeal more to young adults, that therefore we would do better than in a face-to-face. Doesn't necessarily seem to be the case based on the experience of other countries, and therefore I wonder if you've had any chance to look at that.
Okay, let me take the second point first. The participation of the young. We had first round of GGP and with other surveys, we do have our problems to get in young males. But as far as they asked to type in the survey, to sit before a computer, they win. The participation of the young males was much higher as we'd expected. And when we draw the tranche 2 and tranche 3, we had small shares of young males as they were almost completely done with tranche 1. The first point on education, yes, we do have a strong overrepresentation of academics, simply of academics. We have that before in the face-to-face GGSs, and we had it again now. That was one of the reasons we said we have to draw 3 tranches and try to control for that. But we do not have the ISCAT level or any other kind of education level in our registered data. But what we have, well, that's Austria. We do have the academic title. And, well, for quite a part of academics, they have written the title in. Once you have dropped an academic title in some register, that's car patrol registers, obviously. And so we had quite a chance to skip these with an academic title And we know what share of academics do have their academic title placed in. That's easily to be calculated. So we can operationalize that quite easy to reduce the share of academics that were asked to give an interview in tranche 2 and tranche 3. On the other hand, we saw what can we do about these that have not finished secondary or secondary plus education, and we see from our national lottery, for instance, that a large share of participants is from lower educational levels. So we said, okay, let's introduce in tranche 2 and tranche 3, in addition, a lottery. We think that this will appeal to these educational group better and more than the simple post-incentive, the voucher. And we are still analyzing how efficient that went.
Thank you. We have a few questions in the Q&A. So the first one is our colleague from Southampton, Grace Cheng. So thanking you, Norbert, for the very insightful presentation, and wondering if you have any thoughts as to why respondents were so adverse to the CAT mode, because you were in a sense expecting, and you saw it from your tender, that more people would be opting for telephone interview, and yet at the end you didn't use it. So what's going on here?
Well, I simply think the service we made before a couple of years before had quite a share of respondents who preferred CAT. But now I think that's a kind of technical process we had with the COVID crisis, that a high share of people who did not want to touch the computer on their side have learned to communicate over the computer during COVID crisis and the lockdown phases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really interesting how, in a sense, the world could have changed so fast. Usually these trends drag on for a longer period. There's another question also from Grace. Very interested in your question about stress. I believe that these were the additional question that she would like to know how they were phrased. Is it by reference to the last week, the last month? What was these questions?
It's a short-term reference. It's this question is too detailed, but I can answer it. I can answer it when I've looked it up, and I do not know the time frame by heart now. Thank
you. There's a question also from Monika Minarska from Poland. Also thanking you, Norbert. In following up on the mode discussion, Cathy, she's asking if you had considered at all part of the interview to be to the sample to be interviewed in CAPI instead of Cathy. Why and why not?
Well, that was the original idea, to have the push to web strategy from CAPI to CABI. But as COVID broke out, there was no chance and to have the CAPI part, and CAT, the telephone interviews are much cheaper anyway. So we had, well, had some the lucky part of COVID for us in GGP.at was we had some budgets to maneuver with the changing of the modes, and the well, we're quite happy that that we did not try to have a copy part.
Great, thank you. Any other question from the audience? And again, don't be shy, just raise your hand, manifest yourself if you would like.
There's another question in the Q&A.
Yes, just came. In fact, it's an answer to Grace's question from Isabella, that the questions on stress referred to the last 3 months. Thank you, Isabella, okay, for this additional information. Any question from the audience? No. Let's see. If not, well then we will. I will first thank you very much, Norbert. Very much appreciate all the work that was involved, and I think the success is really remarkable. Of course, we're all waiting now for the data. Very exciting, and it'll be particularly interesting what you can find also by comparing it with other sources of data. This is key information that as user community we absolutely need. So good luck with the next steps, of course, and wonderful that that you're bringing that to the user community. For the rest of you, if any of you would like to stay online, we'll stay a few minutes more just to, if you have additional questions for Norbert. If not, thank you very much. We will meet again next month. We will send you the information, but the presentation will be from a colleague from Taiwan. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Lynn, for the organization. Bye.